73 teams to go on my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. We're moving on to the Oregon State Beavers, and this is a team that has trended in the right direction for the past couple of seasons now, making a lot of moves, playing some pretty solid football over the past couple of years. And Oregon State, now coming into 2022, may very well be able to play the role of spoiler in the Pac-12. This is a team that is capable of pulling off some upsets, and we'll look at some players leaving and coming in a little bit. So, can this Oregon State Beaver team continue to take steps in the right direction and possibly be a spoiler in the Pac-12? Or is this Oregon State team going to start to regress and take some steps back this upcoming season? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason. Guys, that means I'm doing your favorite team. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when your favorite team gets uploaded. And for fans of the Oregon State Beavers out there, you guys are going to know this team a lot more than I do. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something, anything of the sort, leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll be happy to see with what you guys have to say. So let's talk about the Beavers in 2022. This is my 6th-ranked team in the Pac-12 coming in to this upcoming season. And it was a really solid team last year. I mean, 7-6 overall. They were 7-5 in the regular season, 5-4 in Pac-12 conference. Again, starting to take steps in the right direction, starting to make their way gradually more and more towards the top of the Pac-12 conference. And this was one of the better offenses the conference sported last year. 429 yards per game with around 31 points per game. And on the defensive side, well, wasn't great, but it was not horrible either. I mean, 387 yards per game, which was 4th worst in the Pac-12, but I think that's a fairly good number. And they only allowed around 26 points per game. So an Oregon State team that we've seen go 3-9 and 2-10 for so many years, now starting to turn around, starting to climb that ladder and getting back up there. Did make a bowl game last year. They got a tough draw with the Mountain West champions in Utah State, and they ended up losing that game. But I think Jonathan Smith, as of late, has started to set a really nice foundation for what this program can be. And let's take a look at some talent now. Leaving this team, you unfortunately do lose the lead rusher, B.J. Baylor, who was fantastic a season ago for this Oregon State team. On 227 carries, had 1,337 yards and 13 touchdowns a season ago. That's really good stuff there. Really, really good stuff from B.J. Baylor. So you're going to have to find a guy to come in and replace him. Trayvon Bradford is a wide receiver, I believe. Yep, was their lead wide receiver. That is also gone. He had 631 yards, 5 touchdowns on 42 catches. A couple other guys there. Champ Flemings, Zariah Beeson. Beeson, I believe, transferred over to Washington State. So you lose those guys there as well. Flemings and Beeson, respectively, were the 4th and 5th receivers for Oregon State last year. Tegan Quitoriano, I probably pronounced that name wrong, so I apologize. But Quitoriano at tight end was, I believe, went to the NFL. 214 yards and 3 touchdowns for Quitoriano a season ago. When you take a look at some defensive talent, not a whole lot leaving this defensive talent, but there are some pretty solid names. Keontae Shad had 2.5 sacks, 46 tackles, 2 passes defended. He's gone off this team. When you look here, Avery Roberts is gone. He had a monster season last year, had 123 tackles, 65 of which were by himself, had 2.5 sacks, 2 passes defended, and an interception a season ago. He had a really good year, as well as Hughes Murray, another linebacker there, had 6 sacks, which I believe led the team. Yep, led the team with those 6 sacks and 56 tackles. So losing those guys there definitely going to hurt this Oregon State team. However, when you look at the talent that is coming back or the talent that is coming in, there's still a lot to like about this Oregon State program. It starts at the quarterback position, where Chance Nolan should figure to be that starting quarterback. You have Tristan Gebbia back in the room, in the reins, and he's been in this program for what feels like forever. But Chance Nolan is coming back for this team, I should say. 2,677 yards, 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Also had 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground with 286 yards. He's a pretty solid option at the quarterback position, and I would think is that starter coming into 2022. When you look at the running back position, Couple running backs that they have coming back. Deshaun Fenwick and Trey Lau were the second and fourth leading rushers on this team. Fenwick had 448 yards and 4 touchdowns. Lau had 359 yards and a single touchdown a season ago. Trayshawn Harrison is a wide receiver that comes back at 401 yards, 3 touchdowns a season ago. Tyjon Lindsey, 232 yards, 3 touchdowns a season ago. And then Luke Musgrave at tight end coming back for this team as well, had 304 yards and a touchdown for him. There's also an athlete, special teams specialist, whatever you want to name him, on the depth chart. Last year he was listed as a linebacker, but really played everything. Had a catch last year for a yard and a touchdown. Ran for 8 touchdowns and 144 yards a season ago. Was returning kicks, punts. It's Jack Coletto. Now, Jack Coletto could prove to be this year's version of the Pac-12's Britton Covey. Could prove to do that year. I think he can be a really, really key part. I think you can play him at wide receiver. You can play him at running back. He's listed as a linebacker. He can return punts, return kicks. Jack Coletto, just kind of an all-around athlete that can do everything. So watch out for Jack Coletto this year. Could be a guy that you don't really know about, but you're going to know his name by the end of the season. On the defensive line, you have Simon Sandberg and James Rawls coming back. The linebacking position, you have Omar Spates, who was the second leading tackler last year, coming back, as well as Riley Sharp, who attributed 3 sacks to this team a season ago. And then the defensive back group, Jaden Grant coming back, had 6 pass defended, 2 sacks. Keaton Oladapo, 69 tackles, 9 passes defended. Rajon Wright, who had 8 passes defended and 2 tackles, and 2 interceptions. I apologize, a season ago. There's also some other guys you can list on there. Alex Austin, and some other names you can throw on this board as well. But this is an Oregon State team that still is talented in 2022. There's no doubt about it. But as we take a look at the schedule, their non-conference slate might be like, well, what's the big deal, right? They should go 3-0. All of these games are landmines. All of them are landmines. Now, Boise State, we know what the Boise State brand has been, and Boise State still figures to be a solid team, and every single year can contend for that Mountain West title in that conference. When you look at Fresno State, yeah, they're losing their head coach, but they get their quarterback back in Jake Haener. I believe Jalen Cropper coming back as well. Yeah, they're getting kind of a new coaching staff, but there's a lot of weapons back on that team. Watch out for Fresno State if you are a Beavers fan. And then Montana State. You might think, well, that's an FCS program that I've never heard of. Why are they a landmine? They were 12-3 last year, and I believe even made it all the way to the FCS championship game, if not the FCS semifinals. I believe they made the FCS championship game, and they figured to be pretty good again this year. So watch out for the Bobcats. In terms of the Pac-12 play, you got USC, Washington, Colorado, Cal, and Oregon at home. Then you got to go on the road to play Utah, Stanford, Washington, and Arizona State. So let's go ahead and dive in, do a little deep dive. Kind of talked about their non-conference games already. Boise State can contend in the Mountain West every year. You always got to watch out for the Broncos. Fresno State, again, while they may be losing their head coach to the Washington Huskies and Kalen DeBoer, they return Jake Haener. They return Jalen Cropper. A lot of other weapons there as well. Bulldogs still figured to be pretty good in 2022. And then Montana State made the FCS championship game or the FCS semifinals. Again, I can't remember at this point off the top of my head, but they were 12-3 last year, and they still figured to be pretty good. Watch out for the Bobcats. Getting into Pac-12 play here, though, I mean, you got a lot of tough road games. I mean, on the road at Utah, that's just a hard draw. On the road at Washington, again, the Huskies weren't that great last year, but they figured to be able to turn it around now that Kalen DeBoer is coming into town. And then when you look at Arizona State, they may be a dumpster fire, and they may have a lot of issues to work out, recruiting violations and such. But that's an Arizona State team that, again, if they prove a lot of people wrong this year and are pretty good down the line, that's a game that Oregon State's got to watch out for. Of course, you have the game at the end of the year against Oregon. That's never tough. But you also have to play USC at home as well. So Oregon State definitely has a tough schedule. This is a tough draw for the Beavers. I mean, on the road at Stanford, that's not a shoo-in win either. At home against Washington State, that's going to be a pretty tough one. Even a game like at home against Cal could end up to be a fairly tough game on the schedule. Now, I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based, I like tell me predicted team's record. So if the game is in red, I don't necessarily see you winning the game. If the game is in orange, I still don't see you winning. But hey, it is college football and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should be able to win, but you got to watch out for teams on the other side of the ball. And games in green, I have you winning. So although I've talked about Montana State and I've talked about how much of a landmine they can be, Oregon State's got 2 games under the belt against 2 of the better programs in the Mountain West. I think they should be able to beat Montana State, but that is a borderline green, yellow-green game. Montana State's going to be a talented team in 2022. When you look at the 2 other non-conference games, I have them both in yellow-green, although that Fresno State game is a fringe 60-40 game. So you could put it in yellow if you want. You could put it in yellow-green if you want. Either way, to me, doesn't matter. But it's like a 60.1 to a 39. I mean, like, it's close. Because I am going to favor Oregon State in that game. However, as I'll talk about later, Oregon State probably drops one of these 3 non-conference games. I'll talk about that more a little bit later. But when you look in Pac-12 play here, USC-Utah, that's a tough draw to open with. The Pac-12 gauntlet is wide open to this team right out of the gate. And you don't get your bye week until after the Colorado game, so you got to be ready to play then. USC figures to be a much improved team from last year. They already sported the Pac-12's best offense a season ago, but now bringing in Lincoln Riley, the best offensive mind, Caleb Williams, one of the best young quarterbacks in the entire nation. This is a USC team that's going to be pretty good. Same thing with Utah. A lot of people's Pac-12 favorites, and you got to go on the road to play them. Going to be tough to win that game. I think even on the road at Stanford. Look, Stanford wasn't great last year. Wasn't a great effort from the Cardinal. But they have an NFL caliber quarterback in Tanner McKee. Lots of talent surrounding him. NFL talent on the defensive side. You got a couple transfers coming in. It's a Stanford team that I think can play a lot of spoiler. And this very well could be a game that decides whether or not Stanford can make a bowl game or not. So Oregon State's got to watch out at home against Washington State. I think the Cougars are probably the biggest sleeper team in the Pac-12 this season. Now, and then you play Colorado. That's all before the bye week. After the bye week, you got road games against Washington. You got a road game against Arizona State. And the game at the end of the year against Oregon. This is a pretty tough schedule here for Oregon State. But I believe in what Jonathan Smith is doing at this program. I believe in his philosophies, and I believe that they do have the talent coming back to make the postseason yet again. And I think they do it fairly comfortably. So I got them going 7-5. In 2022. Now, I do think that they end up dropping one of those 2 non-conference games, and I think more likely than not, it's the game against Fresno State. I do think they lose one of those 2, but I think they start out the year 2-1, maybe 2-3, possibly even 2-4, and this is the Oregon State team that we might be saying, like, man, they're taking some steps back, but I think down the line, I think they can beat Washington State. They can beat Colorado. I even think they have a shot to beat Oregon at the end of the year. That's why the game's in yellow. Wouldn't surprise me to see the Beavers start off 2-3, 2-4, and then finish out the year 5-2 or 5-1. It really could happen that way for the Oregon State Beavers. But guys, that's going to do it for my prediction on the Oregon State Beavers. I got that floor at 4-8, that ceiling 8-4. If you want to stretch it a little bit, possibly could be a 9-3 team next year. But I think a lot would have to go right and a lot would have to mesh for this Oregon State team to do that. Pretty interesting schedule. You got some favorable, unfavorable games. I got the Beavers 7-5 in 2022. So thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, anything like that to help support the channel. And hey, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.